tie into here is that, first of all, you should read it, right? To give yourself a background if you have that kind of time. But when you do, you should take a look and think about where it is that the philosophy is at play. By which I mean, Candide, while being known as being this very populist, very popular story nowadays, was extremely confrontational. It was aggressive. It was seen as rude. In modern theory terms, we'd call it transgressive. And I wanted to kind of use that as a connecting point to some of the rest of this argument as it's being developed, because what Candide is doing is it's creating offensive, sometimes even purposefully blasphemous realities, talking about events of the time, talking about conspiracies at the time, different theories, religious arguments, different philosophies as they were coming up at the time, and they were each being introduced and then attacked in very much a way that sci-fi stories kind of take over later, in that they take an idea and they push it to the extreme. And in this case of Candide, they show it to be ridiculous, because if you take it to the extreme, it must be ridiculous. It cannot exist within that particular way. But the only way that we can make that argument is by taking it to those extremes. And that is inherently transgressive. It's offensive. It's upsetting, as most very kind of aggressive arguments will be. So, where am I going with this? Well, if we're creating a work of art, in the sense of a digital game being something that people engage with and it has some sort of meaning attached to it, which is an argument in its own right, but for the purposes of this video, we will accept that video games are some sort of art. What we can then say is that in order for it to be an effective method of delivering that kind of language, that kind of meaning, it has to either be transgressive or allow the player to be in some way transgressive, to allow them actions that for some might be upsetting. A entirely neutral experience is entirely neutral and cannot be engaging in a very real sense. So the biggest stories of the game EVE Online are the stories of treachery, the story of backstabbing, the stories of assassinations and late night betrayals, right? There's a book by Marcus Carter called Treachery, talking about the different betrayals in EVE Online, in the TV show Survivor, DayZ. Those are very engaging things because they allow people to either see or experience or cause a different transgressive reality. By being something different, it creates options within a person's mind. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is we have to have the ability to experience two different realities in order to have some sort of cognitive load that allows us to experience excitement, engagement, being driven to play a game. it can't just be one singular reality, because we already have a singular reality, and either we're happy with it, in which case we don't want to leave it, or we're not happy with it and we don't want to replicate it. So what we have to do is we have to create additional entire realities that someone can use. And those are meaningful realities, because as soon as you give someone a second layer of understanding on a set of topics, on a particular topic, it doesn't really matter, you're allowing them to incorporate that and use that as a system of analysis, right? And this can cause cognitive dissonance in the sense of, making you want to act in a particular way, but then actually have to act in a different way, and then that causes you stress and causes you to feel anxiety about the lack of choices. And let's say you're playing The Witcher and you don't like the limited choices you have, but you have to make some sort of choices. That is transgressive. It's upsetting, and yet it's engaging. It drives people. The story around The Witcher is very engaging, and it was one of the reasons why it sold so well. So what we want to start thinking about, right, is how can we incorporate that level of cognitive expansion? First, by thinking about this transgressive play. Then, by bringing in other types of creativity, because as we will argue coming forward, creativity is inherently upsetting to the dynamics of power and social cohesion. So this will give us an entire area to start thinking about how can we engage people to broaden their perspectives, and yet use that as a mechanism through which to actually increase the engagement of what it is that we're doing as far as designing a game and working within some sort of context of play.